All right, guys, back on Southeastern 16 with Max Barr, previewing Saturday's action in SEC basketball, and we're previewing the game that will probably be getting the most attention. That is, of course, Alabama and Auburn. Once again, Max, the rematch. Alabama heads to Auburn at Neville Arena, 1:30 p.m. Central on ESPN. These two teams will square off. We know what happened the last time around. Auburn went to the Tuscaloosa, got a 94-85 win there on February 15th. Since that point, we saw the Tigers win four more after that, coming off the 11-point loss to Texas A&M without Denver Jones. I think his status will be something certainly of note as we head into this game. Meanwhile, for the Crimson Tide, since that game, they've lost 3 of 5. They lost the game at Missouri, lost to Tennessee at the buzzer, then lost at home the other night against Florida. Have wins against Kentucky and Mississippi State in there. But as always, two high-octane offensive teams in this game. You would expect there to be points, but surprisingly, Max, both teams coming off of losses heading into this one.
Makes an interesting game a bit more interesting, doesn't it? Little wrinkle into the storyline. If you guys watched our reaction stream to this, as this probably is coming out later this evening, you'll already hear me say this, but I'm going to repeat it. For Alabama, I've started to talk about Darian Reed a little bit more and how I really think they're missing him. You can feel it. You can feel the front court just not as confident for the Tide. In SEC play, the Tide 10-1 with Darian Reed, 2-4 without Darian Reed. Been pretty stark, Blake. The contrast between having the 5-star 6'8" do-it-all wing, maybe even it looks like he's 6'9" to me, but you don't have him, and it's kind of been swept under the storylines of this crazy season. Blake, that's really hurting the Tide right now.
Well, yeah, I just think, we kept saying statistically Alabama is better defensively this year than they were last year, right? I mean, they're still in the top 40 in defensive efficiency. Last year they were 111, as we've noted many times. And, it does seem like that they've been better on that end of the floor. But it also, Max, seems like that some of these same teams that they've sort of had issues with are the ones like the high octane offensive teams, right? Like it's the ones that are sort of like them. And, like we said, I mean, yes, they won at Kentucky. They give up 97 there. Certainly the game against Auburn previously, they score 85, they give up 94. Score 98 at Missouri, give up 110. Kentucky 96-83. Florida 99-94. Like we're used to Alabama playing these high scoring games, but I think that's the thing is it does seem like we sort of, I feel like, mentioned last year was that trio of teams, Florida, Alabama, Kentucky. Yep. Like it's the same sort of scenario this year, just adding in Auburn and Missouri to the mix in terms of the high profile offensive team. So once again, I think it's how does Alabama defend here on the road, against Auburn? Because we've looked at, like we said, some of these matchups specifically on the road. The one at Missouri certainly stands out, right? I know they've beaten some other teams on the road, but still, it's that defensive consistency when you go into someone else's building. That's going to play a big factor. And, if we go back to the first time around, Auburn shot it well from 3. As we expected, they didn't really turn the ball over. So you're really getting a chance to run your offense against Alabama. And that, again, could be a problem here for the Tide.
Blake, with these elite teams that we have in the SEC, we've had a rare opportunity of bounce back spots for the elite teams. I'm thinking of Florida. Every time they've lost, they've come back and it's looked incredible. Well, Auburn's only lost 3 times. The 2 times before this, after the Duke road loss, that was on a Wednesday in the midweek. They came back on a Sunday and beat Richmond. I know it's Richmond, but 98-54. That was ugly. And then in early February, the home loss to Florida on a Saturday, quick turnaround going to Vanderbilt. That was a tough spot. You lose at home on Saturday, you got to go to Nashville on Tuesday. They win by 12 on the road in Vanderbilt, something that a lot of teams haven't done. Now, third opportunity here for the Tigers to bounce back. Blake, what do those teams all have in common that Auburn has lost to? Duke, Florida, Texas A&M. If you ask me who are the most physical front courts in the country, just give me a few of them. I'm talking Duke, Florida, Texas A&M. Alabama here, they have a capable physical front court. Just a matter of, do you get 40 minutes of locked in intensity is the question here. Coming off of a loss, I think we could, but just put that little wrinkle in it for Auburn. The 2 times they've had to bounce back, man, they've looked pretty dang good, Blake.
Yeah, and like you said, we don't have a lot to work with on Auburn in bounce back mode because we just haven't seen them in that spot very much this year. But yes, that they have the times that they have been put in that position. And look, too, I think it's, and remember the talk a couple weeks ago, man, is Auburn slipping at home, right? They were only winning those games and weren't playing perhaps their best, most crisp basketball in the games against Arkansas and Georgia. But then what did they do? They came out with an answer with a 30-point win against Ole Miss. And so and that's the thing, right? We've mentioned many times, look, we understand that, like, what do they have to play for? All that stuff. Like, we get it. Like, they're a number 1 seed. They've won the SEC, all that. But come on. Like, this is Alabama. And I know people are like, well, the A&M game didn't mean anything and all that. Sure, if you want to, kind of use it that way, it didn't mean anything for the seeding or the standings or anything. But this is Alabama, right? This is a different thing. And so I would fully expect Bruce Pearl have his team highly motivated coming into this one. This is the Iron Bowl of basketball. That means something these days. And I would fully, again, expect them to be in a position where you take what you had in that Texas A&M game. Certainly there are some things you're going to be able to learn from. And, maybe a game like that is good for you this time of year to kind of pick apart some of those things that really stood out in that loss. But now getting to come back home, play an Alabama team that I don't want to say is reeling, but, certainly would like to find that next gear that we saw them find this time last year. And so, I think the whole motivation level and all that, let's not kid ourselves. This is Auburn and Alabama. This isn't going to be one where either team's looking ahead or anything like that.
Yeah, and let's not forget, the first matchup was not that long ago. We can still take a good amount from that. And that was the game where Alabama shot 5 of 26 for 19% from 3, where Auburn shot 12 of 30 for 40%. Just nothing to do with the teams, pure mathematics. Alabama is probably going to shoot better than 19%. If they don't, man, Auburn's got a great perimeter scout on Alabama this year. My goodness. And Alabama, say you do have a 6'4" Denver Jones playing and 6'6" Miles Kelly in the backcourt. That is a height advantage for Auburn on the perimeter that we could see. Hey, maybe Alabama is going to struggle on the perimeter with the height of Auburn because they did the first matchup. It wouldn't be crazy to think that. But Blake, what I'm trying to get at is I think we're going to probably get a better shooting night from Alabama. So if the shooting's a little bit better, it was only a 9-point game before. How does Alabama attack this Auburn defense? If they are making their shots on the road, how does that change things? I think that changes a lot. You just saw Janai Broom holding his shoulder the last game a lot. We don't know the injuries with these teams at this point. I'm just trying to say, I'm trying to paint the picture for the Tide to win on the road. I think it starts with making a lot of 3-point shots.
Well, and we're going to go back to the same thing before we make our picks here that we did last time. I mean, Alabama's still top 5 in the country in free throw attempts per game. Auburn, in terms of the fouls, they're still way up there. I don't remember the exact number now. I think it is 314th nationally in fouls per game. So, yes, Alabama getting to the free throw line once again is going to be a crucial part of this. What was their combined, I think, 67 free throws between these two teams last game, 26 of 35 for Alabama, 22 of 32 for Auburn. Don't know if we get that many, but obviously wouldn't be surprised if we did. So, we'll see how it plays out. All right, let's make some picks for this one.
So as we've been talking through this matchup, I originally going into it was head over heels in love with the Fighting Tigers of Auburn. But as we dive into the matchup a little bit, you kind of see what happened the first time around. I do think there is something to, Alabama is going to play better than they did the first time around. There's also something to they've lost 4 out of their last 6 games with their only 2 wins coming at home. I think this is an Auburn team that maybe you don't have the special edge of motivation, but I think they're the better basketball team through and through. And at home, I'll take the Tigers. However, KenPom has this projected as a 93-83 win for Auburn. If this spread is out at 10 in double digits, oh my goodness, I don't like that. That's a little bit too much.
Does seem like a lot, doesn't it? And I mean, look, keep in mind too, if you're playing the percentages, I mean, Alabama has not lost 3 in a row since last year in non-conference play, where they lost those games to Purdue, Creighton, and Arizona early on. Of course, makes sense because they've won a lot of games since then. But yeah, so you could maybe also play into that if you're looking for the probabilities and all those things. But again, I go back to, how does this game play out? Like you said, I think Alabama will shoot the ball better. Will Alabama get to the free throw line as many times as they need to, though, in this game? I don't know about that. But again, a lot of that could depend on, the injury situation and all that for Auburn, which we don't know. We're recording this on Thursday. Look, it'd be great if we were recording these on Friday night. It's just not how it works. So we'd have a better idea of, kind of what everyone's availability is and all that. But when in doubt, what do you got before I make my pick?
I was gonna say, asterisk, make your pick, but then what is your pick, asterisk, if Denver Jones is out? Because we have no clue right now. Do that. I switch mine. If Denver Jones is out, I'm going Alabama. Just asterisk. Okay, because that's massive to me.
Yeah, no, it's a big piece of the puzzle. There's no question. I'm going to pick Auburn. I mean, it's probably not a surprise just because I think that, again, they're the home team, and I do feel like it's completely overblown that, all right, well, this game doesn't mean anything to Auburn. Just not true. And so I think they can find some ways coming back home, rebounding from a loss, like you said. We've not seen it a lot this year, but I think the motivation, Bruce Pearl adding in those aspects, I think that will mean something for a team that wants to go into the SEC tournament, NCAA tournament, with a chip on its shoulder, if that makes sense, for a team that has been number one for so long. But I could certainly see that here. So I'm going to pick Auburn in this one. If Denver Jones doesn't play, oh, man. Yeah, it becomes, I think that the path to victory for Auburn becomes a lot trickier because I think we talk about his perimeter defense, and that's what we talked about the first game, right? He was the difference maker in his ability to defend on the perimeter in that game against Alabama. So I may do the same with you if that's the case. So I'm just saying, I mean, because he was such a big part of that game, and you mentioned, the broom stuff and all that. So we'll see how it goes, but there you go. Our thoughts on this matchup. Should be a fun one. Tell you about our friends at BRACKETBIDS before we hop off. It's March. We're going to be filling out our bracket. You can too with our friends at BRACKETBIDS. Enter into the free pick'em contest or start an auction draft league with your friends, family, or coworkers. We've already done that. Some of you guys, if you join the It Just Means More tier, may be able to get in on that draft league with us to pick the teams we think will go the distance. Remember, you start with the same bidding dollars. You get to outwit and outbid your league mates to secure those teams you think will go the furthest in the tournament. Choose from the multiple scoring models, including the upset bonuses, reward the bold picks, which we are going to have. Track your teams with live in-game scoring and watch the standings shift in real time. The further your teams advance, the higher you climb the standings. For league play, use that promo code SC16 for 40% off. SC16, 40% off. Download the BRACKETBIDS app today or visit them at bracketbids.com. Appreciate you guys watching as always. We'll have reaction to these games on Saturday. We will know the SEC tournament brackets on Saturday night, so lots of fun stuff coming up. So appreciate you guys watching as always. We'll talk to you soon. Southeastern 16.